Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Acbsp Punya Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhav Punya Bihari, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Jamuna Tira Banachari, Jamuna Tira Banachari, Jaya Radha Madhav Punya Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari, Jana Vallabha Giri Banadhari Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiro Banatadri Yamuna Tiro Banatadri Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jai Mahatma Mansa Paribhajagacharya Sakare Small Ram Sarvati Jai Nanda Gori Vaishnava Ki Jai Ramacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Names of the whole Sri Krishna Chaitanya Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivacharya Gaur Bhakti Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kanda Radha Kunda Giri Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham की जय गंगा माई की जय जमुना माई की जय द्वारका धाम की जय स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय ऑल ग्लोरीज टू ऑल ग्लोरीज टू थैंक यू वेरी मच
Krishna Maharaj, my humble obeisances. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai
How are you
Prabhupada.
doing? How's your health? Nice to see
Jai
you.
Srila Prabhupada. Thank you. Nice to see you too.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming to our platform today to bless us. Chedasha. Thank you. I will put the verse on the screen so we can start, please.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 110:3. Nishamya Vishmuktam Athachutokam Pravritta Vijnana Viduta Vipramaha Sasashagamindra Iva Chitashaya Paridyud Bhantam Anujano Bhartitaha Nishamya Vishmuktam Atachutoktam Pravritta Vijnana Viduta Vibramaha Sasashagan Indra Vivajitashaya Paridyut Pantam Anujanuvarjitaha Nishamya Bhishmoktam Atachutoktam Pravita Vijnana Viduta Viprama Sasashagamindra Ivati Tashaya Pradiyupantam Anujanuvartitaha. Word meanings. Nishamya, after listening. Bhishma Uktam, what was spoken by Bhishma Dev. Atha, as also. Achyuta Uktam, what was spoken by the infallible Lord Krishna. Pravritta, being engaged in. Vijnana, perfect knowledge. Vidhuta, completely washed. Vipramaha, all misgivings. Sashasa, ruled over. Gam, the earth. Indra, the king of the heavenly planet. Eva, like. Ajita Ashayaha, protected by the invincible Lord. Paridhi Upantam, including the seas, Anuja, the younger brothers, Anuvartitaha, being followed by them. Translation. Maharaj Yudhishthira, after being enlightened by what was spoken by Bhishmadev and Lord Sri Krishna, the infallible, engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge because all his misgivings were eradicated. Thus he ruled over the earth and seas and was followed by his younger brothers. Purport. The modern English law of primogeniture, if I pronounce that properly, or the law of inheritance by the firstborn, was also prevalent in those days when Maharaj Yudhishthira ruled the earth and seas. In those days, the king of Hastinapur, now part of New Delhi, was the emperor of the world, including the seas, up to the time of Maharaj Parikshit, the grandson of Maharaj Yudhishthira. He ruled the seas also. That means everything. Maharaj Yudhishthira's younger brothers were acting as his ministers and commanders of state. And there was full cooperation between the perfectly religious brothers of the king. Maharaj Yudhishthira was the ideal king or representative of Lord Krishna to rule over the kingdom of earth, and was comparable to King Indra, the representative ruler of the heavenly planets. The demigods like Indra, Chandra, Surya, Varuna, and Vayu are representative kings of different planets of the universe. And similarly, Maharaj Yudhishthira was also one of them, ruling over the kingdom of the earth. Maharaj Yudhishthira was not a typically unenlightened political leader of modern democracy. Maharaj Yudhishthira was instructed by Bhishmadev and the infallible Lord also. And therefore, he had full knowledge of everything in perfection. So it's like you have Indra, Chandra, Varuna, Vayu. They have their own planet. So Maharaj Yudhishthira was like the ruler of the earth planet, the personification of earth, as was Chandra the moon, Surya the sun, Varuna the water, Vayu the wind. You want to bring it up a little more to the top before I start? Yes, okay. The modern elected executive head of a state is just like a puppet because he has no kingly power. Even if he is enlightened, like Maharaj Yudhishthira, he cannot do anything out of his own goodwill due to his constitutional position. Therefore, there are so many states over the earth quarreling because of ideological differences or other selfish motives. But a king like Maharaj Yudhishthira had no ideology of his own. He had but to follow the instructions of the infallible Lord and the Lord's representative and the authorized agent, Bhishmadev. It is instructed in the Shastras that one should follow the great authority and the infallible Lord without any personal motive and manufactured ideology. Therefore, it was possible for Maharaj Yudhishthira to rule the whole world, including the seas, because the principles were infallible and universally applicable to everyone. The conception of one world state can only be fulfilled if we can follow the infallible authority. An imperfect human being cannot create an ideology acceptable to everyone. Only the perfect and the infallible can create a program which is applicable at every place and can be followed by all in the world. It is the person who rules and not the impersonal government. If the person is perfect, the government is perfect. If the person is a fool, the government is a fool's paradise. That is the law of nature. There are so many stories of imperfect kings or executive heads. Therefore, the executive head must be a trained person like Maharaj Yudhisthira, and he must have the full autocratic power to rule over the world. The conception of a world state can take shape only under the regime of a perfect king like Maharaj Yudhisthira. The world was happy in those days because there were kings like Maharaj Yudhisthira to rule the world. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sindhivadi Paschatya. We've all had experience that if a temple is not going well or a project's not going well, and then you bring in a good leader, everything gets better. We have had experience of the opposite also, right? And everything's going fine, and then you bring in a bad leader, and it all goes downhill from there. So Prabhupada makes an interesting point here. He said, it's not the government, it's the leader. So you might have this like great democracy, the savior of the world democracy. But Prabhupada's saying it's not democracy or communism or anything, it's the leader. And so then he mentions here, interesting point, the leader has to be purely motivated. Where is that person who's purely motivated? There are not that many out there, not that many left. And of those who are purely motivated, how many of them are actually leaders? Isn't it? So it's like, the odds are against us in Kali Yuga, isn't it? What do they say when you gamble? The house is again, the odds are against you. Yeah. So, and then the other point Prabhupada makes is that the leader should be perfect. And what does he mean? Well, he means that a leader should be representing perfect knowledge. And that makes him perfect. So we have two things. He's representing perfect knowledge and his motives are pure. And so basically Prabhupada's saying without that, he's really saying, good luck, everyone. If you don't have these two things, whatever else you do, it's like, it's just going to become the lesser of two evils, isn't it? Often when there's elections, we're asked, who are you going to vote for? And at least in America, it's often said, well, I don't like either candidate, but I like this one I like more than the other one. I don't, how should I say it? I hate this one less than the other one, so I vote for him. You have that experience in your country? You vote for the one, there's two people you don't like either, and you vote for the one that's not as bad.
Yes.
Right? And sometimes you can't even vote. They're both just as bad. So then you don't vote. So, and then Prabhupada's, in referring, I'm sure in other purports you have read or will read, in referring to Yudhisthira, Prabhupada always likes to talk about what the world was like when he was a king, and it's like completely unheard of. Everybody loves him. The weather's good. Everyone's prosperous. Everyone's healthy. Like if this were a Vedic kingdom, then with the rise of coronavirus, you could blame every leader of every country. It's actually your fault that there's coronavirus because you're the king and it shouldn't be there. So, so what I did was I found this topic interesting. One of the reasons, and I got some quotes I'm going to read and we'll discuss from Bhagavatam and Prabhupada's lectures and discussions. One of the things I find fascinating about this topic, and this topic is all over the first canto. And it's all about people are not happy when you have leaders who are not Krishna conscious. And Prabhupada's not just talking about spiritually happy. He talks about every level, materially, material prosperity, material health, material well-being, everything, all the way up to spirituality. As you know, in our movement, we are more focused on people's spiritual life, so we don't cater so much to the physical needs. as much as we do to the spiritual. And in many places in the world, we don't cater at all to the material needs. But in this part of the Bhagavatam, because Prabhupada's talking about Kshatriyas and what a Krishna conscious world would look like or was like, then he talks about these things. He talks about the things we never talk about. The people are happy, the people are taken care of. And sometimes, although Prabhupada didn't directly tell us go out and bring clothes to poor people and feed poor people and open hospitals, etc. But so often, when Prabhupada would see the direction of the world, he would suffer by seeing the suffering of people, materially, how people were suffering materially, how women are being exploited by men, citizens are being exploited by the government, and so forth. It would upset him. And of course, Prabhupada knew if we established Krishna consciousness, we could solve those problems. Although he never told us to attack those things directly. But by reading these purports, you could see that, that's ultimately the concern of a Vaishnava, that people are happy materially and spiritually and being directed by a government that can help them become God conscious. So this theme's going to come up more in what I'm going to read. And I hope you find it interesting as I did. This is from the first canto, 18th chapter, text 43. This is purport. An ideal king, thoroughly trained by culture and devotional service with the martial spirit, makes a perfect king. Such a personal monarchy is far better than the so-called democracy of no training and responsibility. So this is not really a politically correct statement, is it? What's Prabhupada saying? Better have a monarchy than a democracy. Of course, you have to have the right king. So if you have a king who's a pure devotee like Yudhisthira, go for a monarchy. If you don't, go for a democracy. But your democracy is not really going to work well, because then you can't ensure that anybody qualified is running the government, because the people are going to decide then. As we know, what do people want? And they want sense gratification. So whatever leader can give them the most sense gratification, they're going to vote for him, right? What leader are you going to vote for? The one who's going to charge you more taxes or less taxes? That's often what's the, at least in America, what's the breaking point of how much is, what is this leader's policy for taxing us? And if you're going to lose money, you don't vote for him. If you're going to save money, you vote for him, right? So Churchill said democracy is a horrible form of government, but it's the best we have. But better than democracy is monarchy of a righteous king. But because there are no righteous kings, everyone's afraid of monarchy. And now monarchy is that's an official show bottle diplomatic position. Thieves and rogues of modern democracy seek election by misrepresentation of votes. And the successful rogues and thieves are like wolves who devour the massive population as if they were scattered lambs. One trained monarch is far better than hundreds of useless ministerial rogues. And it is hinted herein. Why does it always happen that the day I give class, he comes to mow the lawn, and the time I start class, he comes to mow the lawn right in front of my door? Why does it happen? One trained monarch is far better than hundreds of useless ministerial rogues, and it is hinted herein that by the abolition of a monarchical regime like that of Maharaj Parikshit, the mass of people become open to many attacks of the age of Kali. They are never happy in a much advertised democracy. The result of such a kingless administration is described in the following verses. In days gone by, kings, of course, were trained as kshatriyas. Now, in a democracy, you have people become presidents who, never been to war, never picked up a gun, never had to make peace with opposing countries, etc. And then they become leaders, and they may have so many deplorable habits. So Prabhupada, he spells it out pretty clearly, and his point is like, well, this is how it should be, and this is how it is. So you can't expect much other than what you're seeing in the world now, based on what it is. So, and Prabhupada makes the point, okay, everything you do in the government is going to fall short if you don't have a good leader, an ideal leader, a perfect leader. So, of course, you can make adjustments. We can make things better. There's no question. But you're making things better within a foundation of problems. So we know that, you make something better. There's still 1,000 problems to solve. And you solve another problem, and then there's 999. So the next one is from the 4th canto, 21st verse, text 26. The government of Prithu Maharaj was perfect because it was administered exactly according to the orders of the Vedic injunctions. Prithu Maharaj has already explained that the chief duty of the government is to see that everyone executes his respective duty and is elevated to the platform of Krishna consciousness. The government should be so conducted that automatically one is elevated to Krishna consciousness. King Prithu, therefore, wanted his citizens to cooperate fully with him, for if they assented, they would enjoy the same benefit as he after death. Listen to this statement. This is really interesting. If Prithu Maharaj, as a perfect king, were elevated to the heavenly planets, the citizens who cooperated by approving of his methods would also be elevated with him. So that is quite interesting, right? Does it work the other way? Does it only work going up? Prabhupada doesn't say, but it seems to indicate that wherever your leader is going, if you obey him and work with him and follow him, you're going where he's going. It doesn't give us, not too encouraging for the current situation of the world. Since the Krishna conscious movement going on at the present moment is genuine, perfect, and authorized, and is following in the footsteps of Prithu Maharaj, anyone who cooperates with this movement or accepts its principles will get the same results as the workers who are actively propagating Krishna consciousness. It's a beautiful statement. Anyone who helps spreading Krishna consciousness helps, anyone who helps the spreaders gets the benefit, same benefit as if they had done it themselves. So, you know that song, Bhaja Hare Mana, Sri Nanda Nandana. Oh, that song, Govinda Das is saying, I've served wicked men. So what does it mean by that? Well, the idea is Mahat Sevam Dwara Mahor Vimuktes. If you serve the Mahatmas, then what happens? You go up. If you serve the Duratmas, you go down. So he's saying, I've served wicked men, and so I have gone down in consciousness by that service. I have suffered by that service. So you have this amazing king like Prithu Maharaj, and the citizens engage in following him, and they all become elevated. Isn't that amazing? Just by following the government, you become elevated because you're following the king, and the king's a pure devotee. Sounds good, doesn't it? And just by following a rascal, you become a rascal. That's the philosophy. I mean, we say, if you associate with a sadhu, you become a sadhu, right? So you associate with a rascal, you become a rascal. It works both ways. The sword cuts on both sides. So, yes. Now, this is quite a controversial statement. His government was perfect. Like who is going to believe that there's a perfect government? And who's going to believe that the king was perfect? But the fact is, Prabhupada said, why can't it be perfect? He's a perfect devotee and he's perfectly following the Vedas, Vedic injunction on how to be a king and how to engage the citizens. So what's the problem? It's going to be perfect. That's the idea. So if you don't have Maharaj Prithu or Yudhisthira Maharaj or Parikshit Maharaj in running your government, you've got a problem. The closer your leaders can be to these personalities, the better your government will be, right? The more people who love the ruler, the more that they love the ruler, the more they're willing to do what he said. Now, do you know, and I think this kind of happened in South Africa as well, but in India, after Mahatma Gandhi, Nehru took over. And so we know that Gandhi he had a whole plan for India, which was based around village life, cottage industry, farming, not big factories in the city, but living a more simple life. And Nehru, after independence, became the prime minister. And Nehru was like the opposite of Gandhi. So although Gandhi is the father of the country, nobody really followed him. Interesting, isn't it? Why didn't they follow him? Because they wanted to modernize. They didn't want to be an Indian country. They wanted to be westernized, modernized. So that's the problem. You have to have so much love for your leader that whatever he asks, you'll do. However he directs the country, you will go along with it. You'll understand it's the best. And then even though Gandhi was so loved, basically the carpet was pulled from under his feet. And Nelson Mandela also, he was maybe one of the closest things you get to a real leader. But after he was out of office, things went downhill, unfortunately. And that's common in so many places. So I'll take some questions at the end of class. How long is this class going to go? So
Maximum is 2 hours, Maharaj.
2 hours.
You are just beginning.
I thought I was going to get out earlier than that.
So it's 1 hour. Then if there are so many questions, it can last like 2 hours.
We'll see. Yeah.
Whenever you are done, it's okay.
Okay. So this next purport, 4:23:21. Maharaj Prithu is described here as Daita. For not only was he the king of the earth, but he treated the earth as his protected child. Now, look at that. That just hit me like, all this talk about ecology, right? And here, Maharaj Prithu, he's treating the earth like it's his own child. You remember, when the earth didn't want to produce, and she said, hey, all these people are demons. I don't want to feed them. He got so angry. Then she took the form of a cow, and he's like, I'm going to kill you anyway because you're not merciful. So he was pretty serious about taking care of the earth. In our tradition, in American Indian tradition, they see the earth as sacred. They worship the earth. They feel themselves as caretakers of the earth. That's there. And so when the Britishers came and took over America and they were destroying their land, it was heartbreaking for them because all the Indians know that all this pollution in the United States and all the industrialization, it never would have happened if the Britishers came and followed the ways of the Indians. So they would actually worship the land, and part of that worship is to preserve it. So Prithu Maharaj is worshiping the land. Wow, no debate about ecology there. He worships the land. That kind of solves that. We want a king. We want a president who worships the land. That's what we want. And like Prabhupada said, don't vote for them if they don't eat prasadam. So we want a king who worships the land. That's what we want. Isn't that amazing? No. What's your philosophy on ecology? Our philosophy is that the leaders should worship the land. That's our philosophy. We can tell people that. Similarly, he protected his wife also. It was the duty of the king to give protection to everyone, especially to the earth or land, which he ruled, as well as the citizens and his family members. You know that verse, Sarva Sukhino Bhavantu, may everyone be happy? They chant that a lot in the yoga circles. Sarva Sukhino Bhavan, I think Bhavantu, Sarva Sukhino. May everyone in the world be happy. So Prabhupada would quote that. And we'll read something where he quoted that. And it was interesting. When Prabhupada said, may everyone be happy, what do you think? And think, yeah, human society. Prabhupada said, no, this verse means every living entity. May every living entity be happy. So obviously that's a vision of a devotee. So a devotee king, yeah, Sarve Sukhino Bhavantu, yeah, we will make everyone happy, even the insects. Everybody's happy in the kingdom. The earth is happy, the people are happy, the animals, the insects, everybody's happy. It was the duty of the king to give protection to everyone, especially to the earth or land which he ruled, as well as the citizens and his family members. Since Prithu Maharaj was a perfect king, he gave protection to everyone, and therefore he is described here as Daita. So, as I said, he was really upset when Bhumi stopped growing food. And he said, he told her, he said, if you're not merciful, you deserve to be killed. Mercy is a human quality, not even, we say mercy is a transcendental quality. It's also a foundational human quality to be merciful to others, to help others who you can help. So when I was in Nairobi, I asked them, how much do the parliament members get paid? And they said $250,000. And I said, that's almost as much as they get paid in America. I said they get paid. I forget what the figure was. I said they get paid like 300 and something thousand a year. The devotee said, no, that's 250,000 a month. Hare Krishna, right? So they're being merciful to themselves, but not to everyone else.
But that is not money. That is too small.
Yeah. So Prabhupada talks a lot about that. He had once, you may have heard Prabhupada predict that. He said that at some point, the government will harass the people so much that they will leave the cities. And they'll go to take shelter in the country. And Prabhupada said, if you have farms, they'll come to take shelter on your farms. Once Prabhupada was in one city in America, and they were taking a walk in a park, and you could see the city, the downtown from the park. It's probably like 3 miles from the park, but you could see it. And he said to the devotees, he said, one day, this city will be empty because people will be so harassed, they'll have to leave the city. They said, when Prabhupada, far in the future? And Prabhupada said, no, in your lifetime, you will see it. Hare Krishna. Of course, Prabhupada also said the preaching of Krishna consciousness is slowing down the degradation. But anyway, these predictions are there, that people would leave the city because of being exploited by the government. So now, I want to read from A Morning Walk. This is in Mayapur, 1976. Tamal Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, what are the qualifications of a perfect leader? Prabhupada, no mistake, no illusion, no cheating, no imperfection. Anyone who commits mistake, he's illusioned, he's a cheater and imperfect, he cannot lead. So bring any leader of these rascal groups and test these four principles. He is misleader. Of course, again, we go back to this point of democracy. Within democracy, these things cannot be mandated or controlled. Whoever can speak best, and in some cases, whoever can lie and get people to believe his lies will become the next leader. No other qualification necessary. So Prabhupada goes on. So communists should be impressed that you are trying to establish a perfect society. That is your philosophy. In other words, that is the communist philosophy. So unless there is a perfect leader, how you can establish, this is the way. So at Prabhupada's point, of course, is perfect leaders following the Vedas. So that discounts communism because they don't have faith in God. So they can't really do it. They can't be the perfect leaders. So then this next conversation, it explains how you become a perfect leader, in case you want to be a perfect leader. And we should all be perfect leaders. So this is from Prabhu Vishnu Swami. Once in Vrindavan in 1974, I was in Srila Prabhupada's room during the Mayapur festival. That time, Marudvisa Swami was leaving and was saying goodbye to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada thanked him for his service and told him, you are a perfect leader. Marudvisa said, I'm just trying to follow you, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada replied, of course, without following properly, you can never become a perfect leader. So this word perfect leader, perfect king, it's an interesting word, and Prabhupada uses it a lot, but he doesn't use it in the sense we might normally think, oh, this person is perfect, because nobody's perfect. So how can you have a perfect leader if nobody's perfect? And of course, Prabhupada means because he's perfectly following his leader, who was perfectly following his leader, who was perfectly following their leader, all the way back to Krishna. So if you perfectly follow what's been given to you, you're a perfect leader. And if you're not following the perfect leader, you shouldn't be a leader. You remember our friend Kali, he appeared and Parikshit was going to kill him. So he was a Shudra in the guise of a leader. You know, for Bhagavatam foretelling that this would be your normal leader, Shudra. Nothing wrong with a Shudra as long as they're not the king or prime minister. But when they become the king or prime minister, you have trouble. So the next is a remembrance. It's from Charu Prabhu, and this is about Prabhupada visiting Australia, 1971. During Srila Prabhupada's visit in 1971, I booked him on a number of national television shows, but we'd have to travel quite a distance to get to the studios. And then they'd ask superficial questions for 5 or 10 minutes. After one interview, Prabhupada looked at me, shook his head and said, they do not know how to question. Another time, Prabhupada and I were sitting in the waiting room to go onto a national TV show. And on a little TV screen, we saw a graphic scene of a woman being violated in the woods, some television show. Prabhupada was astounded, incredulous, that these kinds of things were displayed on public media. I guess the woman was being raped or something. He looked at the whole thing and then turned to me and said, "The world is going to hell," and shook his head. Right? So without the perfect leader, we obviously can't expect much. But this comment that the world is going to hell, Prabhupada made that comment often, just seeing what was going on in the world. That was his comment. And ladies and gentlemen, my dear devotees, you are being called to stop the world from going to hell by being perfect leaders yourself. So this next one, I'm not sure where it's from. It's in one of Prabhupada's small books, Matchless Gifts. But I think it's from Bhagavatam, but I couldn't find it in the Bhagavatam. So maybe it's not. It's definitely, it's the way it's written. It doesn't sound like Prabhupada spoke this. It sounds like he wrote it. By devotional service, one has to become Vasudeva Parayana, a devotee of Lord Vasudeva or Lord Krishna. In other words, we have to learn how to become lovers of Vasudeva. If the world takes up this Krishna consciousness, the planet is certain to be peaceful. Now the earth is quickly becoming a hellish planet. Yeah, this is, I think, from the 6th canto or something. 5th canto, 6th canto. And if this Krishna consciousness is not taken up, the hellish condition will progress despite all advances in education and economic development. Therefore, those who are thoughtful should take this movement very seriously and try to understand its value. It is not something manufactured by one man or group of disciples. It is authoritative and age-old, based on the Vedic literatures, which date back thousands of years. So I'm going to read a few sentences again. Now the earth is quickly becoming a hellish planet, and if this Krishna consciousness is not taken up, this hellish condition will progress despite all advances in education and economic development. So, ladies and gentlemen, no pressure on you. I just want you to know that the world's going to hell, and if you don't do anything about it, it's not going to change course. Don't stress out too much, but it's all on our shoulders, actually. Whether, I know sometimes you're just interested in getting your chapatis and pakoras and all of them. But actually, the world is depending on us. Right? It's more chapatis and pakoras, that's okay. But after you eat them, there's business to be done. So, one question that always came up in my mind was, well, why would Prabhupada talk so much about government and kings? Doesn't seem relevant, right? We just have our temples and our preaching, distribute books and do kirtan, and why do we care about governments and political leaders and all this? So Prabhupada wouldn't be writing about this if he didn't care about it. Prabhupada wouldn't be writing about this if he didn't think there was a possibility, or at least a desire to do this, right? So he talks about it a lot. It's all over the place, right? So I'm looking at all of you, and I'm seeing the future leaders of the world sitting here. What are you seeing? Future Pakora eaters of the world or future leaders of the world? And like, which one are you going to be? Pakora eater Olympics, or you're actually going to do something? Yeah. So that's why these purports are here. That's why, it's like, why is Prabhupada talking about all of this? Because on the most basic level, because he wants us all to be leaders, if not leaders of countries, at least leaders of temples, of devotees, of families, of small groups, Bhakti Vriksha. So what's applying to bigger leaders of planet like Yudhisthira and Parikshit Maharaj, Richard Maharaj, still applies the same principles, whatever you're managing. But as I mentioned before, I think we should note Prabhupada's compassion here, that he's thinking about these things. He's thinking about the world. Can you see that by reading these purports? Prabhupada is thinking about the world, the welfare of the world. That's what a pure devotee thinks about. He thinks about all the suffering of the people and their welfare and how we can do something. That's what he thinks, that's on his mind all the time. And it should be on ours as well. So I'm going to read some more. We're almost finished. Then we can take questions. So this is from a lecture in 1969. This is really interesting and a little confusing. Maybe Bhakti, dear Damodar Maharaj, you might want to comment on this, because listen to what I read. It's a little confusing. I mean, I will try to comment on it, but maybe you could chime in. So our Krishna consciousness movement is to let people know how much valuable life is his and utilize it in that way. In other words, how valuable your human life is. Our movement is Sarve Sukhino Bhavantu. Everyone become happy. Be happy. Not only human society, even animal society. So take this opportunity. I want to see Sarva Sukhino Bhavantu. This is the Vedic mission. Let everyone become happy. Let everyone be happy. And here's the interesting line. And without being happy, nobody can execute Krishna consciousness.
I know this.
Isn't that interesting? What's our philosophy? Be Krishna conscious and then you'll be happy, right? Isn't that our philosophy? So,
Susukam Katuma Jayam, joyfully performed.
And here Prabhupada's saying, without being happy, you can't be Krishna conscious. Almost, one could think, maybe this is incorrect, one could think he's talking about what a king would do. Keep people happy, keep his citizens happy, protected, fed, and so forth. And then in that peaceful state, you can execute Krishna consciousness. So that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
But however, if we interpret it as, well, make them Krishna conscious, they'll be happy, or be leaders of the world and help people live peacefully so they can execute Krishna consciousness. However we take it, it's interesting. We see how Prabhupada, what's he thinking about? Thinking about the world, thinking about suffering. It really hurt Prabhupada to see the condition of the world. It really pained him. And sometimes you might wonder, why did Prabhupada work so hard? Why did he sleep so little? It's because he was pained to see the condition of the world. And Prabhupada, he saw how quickly Kali Yuga was progressing. And so Prabhupada was kind of like a firefighter. The fire is getting bigger, and he was just working, traveling the world, putting out these fires before the fire engulfs the whole world. That was his mood. You could see that. So I have 4 things I want to give to you that I think are qualities of honesty and humility that we should see in leaders. And all of you are leaders of some sort. Some of you are bigger leaders than others who have more responsibilities, but nonetheless, we're all leaders, or we will become leaders as we become older in Christian consciousness. So here's 5 things you can consider. You may want to write these down. Should I put them in the chat?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah, I'll put one by one. Then you won't be reading the others while I talk about them. Okay. First one, be honest about something that you were formerly being dishonest about. Okay, be warned that these 5 actions are not easy to do. So, has Prabhupada talked about cheaters in the position of leaders? Yes. What does honesty mean? One definition of honesty means what you are in your private life, you are in your public life. There's no duality in your life. Inside and outside is the same. And one time a devotee wasn't chanting his rounds. So he was the temple president, and the devotees went to Prabhupada and said, so-and-so is not chanting. We should remove him. Prabhupada said, how do you know he's not chanting? And they said, well, Prabhupada, he told us. And Prabhupada said, therefore, he's a Brahmin. He should stay president. Honest. Brahmins are honest. So honesty is very important. Sometimes we're dishonest out of fear, but it's a Brahminical quality. So if you've been dishonest about something, come clean. Next one. Take responsibility for something that you were formerly blaming another for. So you can't be a leader if you don't take responsibility. You can't be a leader if you're blaming people for what you've done wrong. That's what kids do. Leaders take responsibility. In fact, anytime there was a problem and the leader tried to say, but Prabhupada, it's not my fault, and he would say, yeah, it is your fault because you're the leader. So we have a saying, I don't know if you have this saying in your country, but we have the saying, the buck stops here. Buck is $1. It's another way of saying $1. The buck stops here. The buck stops with the leader. That's where all whatever goes wrong, the leader takes the blame. So anything that could have been better if you did something differently, take responsibility for it and stop blaming. That's the strength of a leader. Okay. Next one. This is an exercise in humility and diminishing your false ego. Treat someone whom you formerly felt superior to as an equal or as a superior. You know, stop treating people like you're better than them. Now, you may have a superior position, but it doesn't mean to treat them as an inferior person. So if you've treated someone that way, then change that. Use an advantage that you formerly used to gain something for yourself to gain something for another person. So there's a book in America, and the title of it is Leaders Eat Last. You know about that book? Leaders Eat Last. And the premise of the book is you put the people you're leading in front of you and above you, and you serve them. So you make sure they all get to eat, and then you eat if there's anything left. So that's a real leader. Nice, right? So you can gain something for yourself because you have the resources. You're a leader. Use that to help somebody else. And the last one, and there can be many more, but we'll do 5 today. Communicate sincere congratulations to someone whom you formerly felt envious of. That could be difficult, but necessary. So we are envious of someone who has what we want, but don't have. We're not happy they have it. When we congratulate them, we dissolve the envy. These are what I see as practices of humility, and the main quality of a leader is humility and compassion. So I'm going to stop there, and then we'll take questions and comments and see how long that goes.
Thank you, Maharaj, for your wonderful class. It's really deep. Thank you a lot. I personally have one simple question on the beginning in the papers. Prabhu talk about the law of inheritance.
Yeah.
Where the firstborn always inherits the property of the father. So my question is, in the firstborn, is it due to his pious activity that he become the first son of a man? Or is it that Krishna just want to bless him because the father born all the sons equally and the daughters equally?
Well, Krishna definitely wanted Yudhishthira to be the king. He felt he was the most qualified dharma.
Because even in Africa, we still practice such where the father died, the family house belonged to the first son, and he make all the decisions.
Well, you know, the
even
problem.
Well,
the problem in Kali Yuga is that these ancient principles worked when people weren't rascals, but when they become rascals, it's all topsy-turvy now, right? You're going to be the king. You're the next king of Africa, right? What's your qualification? Hundreds of years ago, there were high qualifications. Now, the only qualification is you're the oldest son. So that's a huge problem. And it's a problem within our movement also, because our movement operates on Vedic principles. And for the principles to operate, you need certain conditions, otherwise it doesn't work. So if you're going to have a guru-disciple relationship, you need a bona fide guru and a bona fide disciple. Both of those are pretty rare in Kali Yuga, right? The disciple's saying, I'm looking for a bona fide guru, and the guru is saying, I'm looking for a bona fide disciple. They're both rare, right? So yes, we should surrender to a guru, but not a bogus one. And there are plenty of bogus ones. So that's the problem we face. We have principles, but they only operate in certain conditions. Other conditions, they backfire, right? So you surrender, this person's a guru, you surrender, but he's not bona fide. And he cheats you. But the Shastra says you should surrender. He's, my parent, I should honor my parents, and my parents told me to surrender to this guru, so I'm just doing everything that the scripture says. And my parents are fools, and this guru is trying to exploit me. So what should I do? I should do what's best for my Krishna consciousness. In this situation, not following my parents and not following this guru would be the best thing. Although on paper, it's the wrong thing, right? Mm-hmm. Now in Kali Yuga, you have to recalibrate everything. Is this going to work actually? Because it's Kali Yuga, the principle is there, but the people qualified? And the answer is often they're not qualified. So you can't. Yeah. You can't. When Brahmananda's mother first came to visit him, and Prabhupada was there, So she came into Prabhupada's room to meet him. And Prabhupada said, bow down and touch your mother's feet, because that's the, mother is first guru. That's the culture, right? So Brahmananda was kind of shocked, that was nothing, that he ever learned to do when he was a kid. But anyway, he did it. But Prabhupada never said, now do whatever she tells you to do. So, in the perfect world, when you bow to someone, it means you're going to be their disciple, basically. So when you bow to your mother, it means you're my guru. I do what you say. But that's not what Prabhupada was asking her to do, asking him to do. I wasn't asking him to follow her, just asking him to respect her. But traditionally, it would be to follow as well. But we can't do that. She's not qualified. So you have to be careful, if you're going to execute strict principles, that everything should be to the right standard. It's like cooking, You're cooking and you have different spices, but spices aren't grown in proper soil. They don't have the right fragrance. And then when you use the spice, the sabji doesn't come out right because the spice wasn't good. Right?
Yes, Maharaj.
But you follow the recipe, you did everything correctly, but you have to use more of that spice because it's not potent. Something like that.
Thank you, Maharaj. Our second question is from Sahadev Prabhu. Please unmute.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for the class. I have a question about, Srila Prabhupada, you were saying Srila Prabhupada says, don't vote if the candidate is not eating prasadam. I mean, I believe some devotees still follow this statement of Srila Prabhupada. But
If you want to vote for him, go meet him and put a gulab jamun in his mouth, and then you can vote for him.
But like you rightly said, at least you vote the lesser of the two evils. And
you get the karma for voting for them also.
All right. If I do not vote, they're still going to rule over me. Their decisions are going to have impact on me. So
Yeah,
why don't I then attempt to pick the lesser evil of the two?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
but how do you determine who's the lesser of the lesser? On what standard? Because it's like with Donald Trump, he had actually given us. Thinking he actually had donated space in New York in 1975 to work on the Rath Yatra. He had some land, vacant land, and that's where he took prasadam. So on that basis, you could think, okay, on that basis, we should vote for him. He's against abortion, this and that. So, but in other ways, we wouldn't want to vote. So, the problem is, Sahadev, devotees don't agree on who to vote for.
Yeah, I don't think there is ever going to be a settled agreement as to who to vote for. It's still going to remain an individual's opinion. But my question, Sri Mahatma Maharaj, is like you said, when the citizens follow the leader, they go to where the leader is going to. Now, I do not know where my political leader is going to, but I know where my spiritual leader is going to.
Yeah.
And as such, I must follow and listen to whatever my spiritual leader is telling me. Now, there is a problem here, though, when I know my spiritual leader, even though is Vaikuntha bound, but he's telling me to do something which on earthly approach and understanding doesn't help. I mean, the third offense to chanting the holy names of the Lord is to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. And as such, I think that the spiritual masters or the spiritual master have to be very cautious in ordering. I'm saying this because there have been few spiritual masters, good standing spiritual masters. I bow down to all of them, whereby they're saying it that it is senseless, useless to put on masks amidst pandemic. Now,
Say that again. Senseless and useless to do what?
to wear mask, to wear face mask, to put on
okay.
face masks.
Okay.
That is something I just cannot accept.
Right.
And when I do not accept, does that mean that I'm disobeying the spiritual master and as such going to hell?
Hare Krishna. No. If the spiritual master says Krishna is God and you say, I don't believe you, then there might be another planet other than Krishna Loka you're going to go to. But on something like this, no. You know, a devotee that I knew very well had parasites. And Prabhupada was a chemist, so sometimes he would give us some remedies here and there. So the devotee asked Prabhupada's servant if you could ask Prabhupada, does he have a remedy for parasites? And the message we got was, I'm your spiritual master. I'm not a doctor. Go ask a doctor. So in other words, Prabhupada, he didn't want us approaching him for medical advice. And so I think that's also the best policy for a spiritual master as well. Yeah. What if my medical advice is wrong? Just today, we were having a meeting, and there's a health ministry. Prahlada Maharaj had run the health ministry, and now it's taking it a new level. So there's a health ministry, and then someone brought up the idea, well, if we give advice about health and it's not correct, could we be sued for that? Isn't that dangerous? So generally, we didn't see, Prabhupada voiced his personal opinions about medical things. He didn't like surgery, he didn't like allopathic medicine. But when asked about it, he just said, do whatever you have to do. He wasn't, so specific. And then after about 1973, when so many devotees were divorced, he had nothing to do with marriages. He's just like, you do it. So I think we see that Prabhupada was careful about what he would instruct and wouldn't instruct. So, and it's not really answering your question, but your question makes the point that when a spiritual master gives you instruction on something material, it could be problematic, especially if you don't agree with it. But in that case, if you don't agree, it's not a great offense. But if you don't agree with Shastra, then that becomes an offense, And the funny thing is also, I don't know if any of you know this, and it will help answer the question, but I hope it doesn't shake you up too much. But there are devotees, who started initiating when they were 28 years old, 29 years old, right? The ones Prabhupada appointed. And they've grown and matured, right? And they've actually said, don't listen to any lectures pre this date, because they disagree with what they said, because they were young and immature. And, they feel their interpretations were immature. So it can happen. And I think in general, it's better that, like when people, I get asked, vaccine, no vaccine, what to do. I'll never say what to do. I can't be responsible. What if I said, don't get a vaccine and you died of COVID? What if I say get a vaccine and you died of the vaccine?
Mhm.
So that's sometimes you have to use your discretion, and then you will suffer the results or enjoy the results depending on what you decided, right? Maybe your spiritual master says, "No, I want you to fly to India," and you say, "I don't think it's safe right now." No, you must go. And you've got like a chest condition. What do they call that? Starts with an A. I can't think of it. Asthma. You have you have asthma. So all the people who have asthma have told me they're very, very concerned about COVID. And they just don't want to go out much. So let's say your guru says, you need you to fly to India right now, and you have asthma. And your doctor says, don't go. Who do you follow? I guess it depends on your faith also. If Krishna wants me to die, I'll die. Right? So, there are different factors to consider. I think some devotees are happy to do whatever their guru asks, even if it doesn't make sense. And some devotees will say, it doesn't make sense, I have to talk to him. And some will say, it doesn't make sense, I won't do it. And with every relationship you have with different gurus, it will affect the relationship. Let's say you don't think it's a good idea, but it's really going to harm the relationship. Better just do it. I mean, it's hard to answer this question because I don't know the situation per se, but probably a good idea to wear a mask when you go to India, right? Well, you can always just depend on Krishna's side, Dave, just like whatever, Krishna wants. That's also there. But you can't artificially do that. And I think some devotees are like that. It's like, if Krishna wants me to get COVID, I'll get it. Mask, no mask. If so many people got vaccinated, they're still getting COVID, so whatever. I'm going out on Sankirtan, right? Whatever. So, you can't imitate that, but some devotees feel that. And Krishna will, some devotees are protected and some are not.
Well, thank you for your response. But I have always been under this notion that God gave us mind, intelligence, and ego, and He wants us to use these principles. We should be able to use our intelligence. Prabhupada defines intelligence as the ability to analyze things in their right perspective. Yeah. So if we have our intelligence and we cannot use intelligence to help do things within this material world, and we just expect Krishna to do whatever, everything for us. How do we know whatever happened in our lives were as a result of Krishna's doings, or it is Maya's, or it's our own negligence, or it's our own foolishness? So I really appreciate that, if I'm understanding you clearly, that especially spiritual masters, when they give like advice or opinions on something that is not spiritual. For example, myself, I work in a nursing home where I have witnessed so many deaths to COVID-19. And so it's very difficult for me to just accept a spiritual master's opinion or advice or instruction, whichever way, that simply because masks are not 100% protective, you should not wear them. it makes it difficult for me to accept something like that, because nothing in this world is 100% protective. The car I drive in every day is not 100% protective.
Yeah.
I drive in the car. I drive every single day. So I truly appreciate your answer, and I hope lots of our leadership will help us that way, so that we do not disobey and stand the chance of going to Talatala. I'm not ready to go to Talatala at this particular time, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
You know, you want to hear an interesting story?
Sure, yes.
You probably know the story when Prabhupada said they didn't go to the moon, and some devotees were really upset.
Yeah.
And Prabhupada said other things that were hard to accept. And so after a while, when Prabhupada saw how hard it was for them to accept, he just never said those things anymore. So, you know, the spiritual master also understands that some things are going to be difficult, and some things are also, like I said, not really his jurisdiction. Could be problematic. So he'll refrain from saying anything. And like you say, the disciples will use their discrimination. Like whatever I say, mask, no mask, vaccination, no vaccination, say the majority of people will make up their own mind no matter what I say. I'm not a doctor. You know, if I was a doctor with 6 PhDs in viruses, you might take it more seriously, right? If I say, the mask is actually making it worse, and I explain why, and you're like, oh my God, and this and that, maybe. But that's generally not the case. So, you know, Sahadev, it also depends on the spiritual master, you know, because many spiritual masters will, you know, they won't expect their disciples to do everything they say on the material level, but they'll expect them to apply time, place, circumstance, situation, their intelligence.
Thank you, Maharaj. We have a question on the chat room from George Omega. Say, Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much for the class. Please, what kind of happiness are we talking about? Perhaps which of the happiness comes first? Do I need to be materially happy in order to be spiritually happy, or vice versa? Which one is first?
This is such an interesting question, because we would say, no, you have to be materially miserable to become Krishna conscious. But it seems that Prabhupada may be referring to people's material position being stable, not having enough food, shelter, clothes, so forth. And because obviously people don't have that, it's really difficult. You know, what do they say? You know, you can't think of God with an empty stomach. First fill your stomach, then you can go to church. Something like that. So it's, you know, it was never our mission. Well, actually, it was our mission in Mayapur to feed hungry people. But no one should go hungry within a radius of 10 miles. So I can give you my own answer, which is more personal, is that, well, I can tell you a story. There were some young boys coming to the temple in Juhu. And they would come every day to Guru Puja and dance like that. And they're very poor. Their clothes. You've seen poor kids in India, or maybe in any country. You know, the clothes are just rags that, you know, been handed down for who knows how long. Dirty, holy, and like that. So there was one man who was coming to the temple, going on walks with Prabhupada. And Prabhupada, when the man was there in the temple, he said, you know, you see these kids, you should tell your wife to get clothes for them. You know, they need clothes, they're poor, get clothes. Some devotee questioned that, and Prabhupada said, they're coming every day to the temple, we should take care of them. So there is that sense that if people are coming to Krishna, we should take care of them on any level. And then it'll be easier for them to take Krishna. Sanatana Goswami said that as far as welfare work is concerned, it's not a limb of bhakti, but if you can help somebody and you don't, he said it's not good for your bhakti because it hardens your heart. Isn't that interesting?
Yep.
Like let's say, there's some poor man, he's got cuts on his feet, he has no shoes. And you could take your shoes off and give it to him. You have more shoes at home. It's not a big thing, Or you can, walk down the street barefoot to a shoe store and buy some shoes. So he's saying something like that, where you could help, you should. It actually, if you don't, your heart can become hard. So something to consider. I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, thank you, Maharaj. I have another question on worshiping the land you mentioned. So when the kings worship the land, are they worshiping the land because the land is God, or because the land produces food grains, or are they doing demigod worship or idol worship?
No, he was worshiping the land because, he's the king, so he's meant to take care of the earth. And if the earth is taken care of, then he's meant to take care of everyone, all living entities, and all living entities get their food from the earth. And so he has to take care of the earth so the earth will provide enough, because the king is like the father of everyone. So the king's job is to make sure everyone's happy. It's like Prabhupada saying here, everyone's happy, then they'll follow, the king has made them happy, they'll follow him. So it's his job to make sure that they're prosperous, that they're healthy, that they have what they need. And so naturally, he worships the earth, takes care of the earth, because she's the one who supplies everything we need comes from the earth. So, yeah.
My next question is on, you mentioned that we should make everyone happy. But my question is, how can we make, because you mentioned the ants, the insects, the animals, not only human beings. So if we make the animals also happy, when we walk on the street, we kill ants, insects. Are we making them happy?
Well, if you're a pure devotee, they'll be happy to be under your feet. What Prabhupada meant by making them happy is don't unnecessarily cause them pain. You walk on an ant, but you don't even know you're walking on it. So, but then sometimes you see there's a pile of ants, so you walk around. So don't unnecessarily cause pain, right? When we say, okay, we're going to make, we are going to try to make the world happy, most people just think of humans. So Prabhupada's saying, as a devotee, you think of all forms of life, right? One time this is an interesting story. This is a good answer to your question. There was a butterfly in Prabhupada's room, and he put his finger out, and the butterfly landed on his finger. And he opened the door and threw the butterfly out. And Prabhupada said that if he stays inside the house, there's nothing to eat, he'll starve. So he'd take him out so he can eat. And there was also a story like that, I think, with some ant. He said he gave the devotee a flower and said, put the flower down. The ant went on the flower, and then there's something like there's some kind of insect, and then Prabhupada threw it out the window. And Prabhupada said, here, enjoy, the world is yours. But when there was some insect, Prabhupada said, put the insect on a leaf, because that leaf is his food. He said, otherwise he'll starve. And so Prabhupada's thinking about an insect starving. Can you imagine that? Like, who in the world is thinking about starving insects? Anybody? That'd be an interesting title for a book, Thinking About Starving Insects. So there's an insect in the room, and Prabhupada's thinking this insect won't get food. Is that amazing, or is that amazing?
I think it's very amazing.
Yeah. What person in the world thinks about if insects are hungry or not? Do you ever think that in your life? Wonder if that ant's hungry. Crazy,
Well,
huh?
I'll try. I oftentimes avoided them having something to eat by hiding my sugar from them.
Just take the sugar and put it outside and you can feed them. But I've seen a lot of ants like rose petals, I think, or some kind of flower. And so they're eating it, they're getting some food. And one time there was some Leela with some insect, and Prabhupada was chanting to the insect. He said, if we could just make this insect Krishna conscious, our movement be successful. I think the idea is anybody you can make Krishna conscious, that's the success of having 600 temples and so many things. You can make one person, send them back to God, and you're successful. So, that's Prabhupada's vision. So, one cockroach can become Krishna conscious, our movement successful. What a vision that is.
See, Prabhuji, I wouldn't blame you per se, but I would say that you caused me to steal from my guru, which is a very, very heinous offense.
What did you steal?
I stole my Guru Dev's cassette of your only shelter. It had just it had just come out, and I was in Ghana then. We didn't have access to the tape, and Bhaktivinoda Maharaj came to our country, and he came with the cassette. So fortunately or unfortunately for me, I was taking care of him in his ashram. And so the night before, when I was with him in the ashram, I heard him play the cassette. I said, oh, this is heavenly. And then the following morning, I was taking care of the ashram when he had gone out. So I quickly took the cassette, sent it out, and then made a copy of it. And then I brought it back. Now, do I get karma for taking the guru's item without seeking his opinion or seeking his blessings first? But I just couldn't help myself. I said, no, I have to get a copy of it. Hare Krishna.
And it's all my fault.
Yes, I think it's your fault. You made it too good.
Hare Krishna. Hare.
Thank you.
Govinda. Hare Krishna. We made a Sahadev. We just recorded a new version of Brahma Samhita.
Oh, okay.
It's really special. I'm not sure when it'll come out. It's just been sent to be mixed. So.
Oh, okay.
Not that far. Yeah, we're making a cover now. Yeah.
That album is, and will forever be so good. Especially the prayer. I've forgotten the name of this guru, where he was praying that please help me.
King
Kulashekar.
Krishna.
Yes.
That one.
Yes.
Jaiva me vishatu manasara jansa. Pana prayana samaye. Kababata pita. Kandavarodana vidho. Shmaranam kutaste. That one, yeah.
Yes, it's so sweet, but it's much sweeter when you read the translation.
Oh, yeah.
When you read the translation, and I can understand and imagine myself being in that situation, because I've seen so many people in that situation where they're trying to call for help, but they cannot call for help.
Yeah, it's true.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj, for your wonderful class. Anybody? No hand is up again.
Oh, I have to make an announcement. I'm going to put something in the
In the
chat.
chat room.
Yeah, we're doing a japa retreat,
Okay.
October 8th. So I'm going to put the
Okay.
registration. Put the registration. It's online.
Okay.
October, no, I think it's 9 and 10. 2.5 hours a day. It's amazing. This is going to be the 7th one I've done this year. And we have devotees from all around the world. And it's also going to be translated in French. If you have any French you want to share with the French-speaking devotees in Africa.
Yes.
So if you could share that with temple presidents, leaders like that, GBC, that would be nice. We have hundreds of devotees. We've over 2,500 devotees have attended in
Wow.
6 different sessions. Yeah, so it's really nice. Level 1. It's level 1, and level 2 is going to start around the end of October. And you'll get, if you've gone to level 1, you'll get a message for level 2. And somebody asked a question about, let's listen. Can we say we waste prasad by throwing it out in the refuge dump?
Somebody's asking, is the Japa retreats level 1 or 2?
Level
Raja,
1.
Oh, he
Raja,
answered
Raja.
that.
Yeah, level 2 is coming up.
But we're waiting for the link.
Oh, didn't I send it?
Not yet.
Yeah, registration link. I'll send it again. It's there. Ta-da. There you go. And if you chant japa, this
That's the
course
link.
yeah. If you chant
Okay, here
japa,
it is,
this
yeah.
course is for you. Yeah,
Level
Yeah.
1.
you
Yeah.
should all come. And level 2, if you've been to level 1, level 2, you'll get an ad for that.
Maharaj, which one is the French version? Because we have some French
Oh,
devotees.
we're yeah, I think level 1, 2, and 3 will have French. So if they register, they can just mention that they speak French. I will, if we have, well, we choose the language by the participants. If there's enough participants that need the language, we'll find a translator and we'll have it done. So they just have to let us know. I think we already intend to have French because we have a translator.
Okay.
Français. Ça c'est bon. Hare Krishna. So we had another question. Feed the ants Mahaprasadam. Is that the question?
Yeah, Dr. Ladimeji, you raise your hand up. Ladimeji, you're free.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, I just want to point out you were trying to read the question of Ant and Prasadam or something, and you were altered. So I just want to remind you.
I'm reading the question right now.
Yeah, all right. So,
Hey, tell me, ask the question yourself so I understand it.
okay. I wasn't the person that asked, but I followed the question. It said, Maharaj, can we waste Prasadam by throwing it out to the refuse dump where ants are there to honor it or to eat it?
If you have your own, we used to throw prasadam in the ocean, but if you have to throw it out, throw it in the earth, let the animals have it. Why not? Best thing is not waste any. But yeah, should be thrown in the earth, in the ocean, in water. We used to go to we had a temple by the ocean. We used to go to the ocean and put all the flowers and extra prasadam in the ocean. That was a regular event. I don't know if a lot of temples do that anymore. We called it the sacred throwaway. And you can do it in the earth. And there's another story. This is an amazing story. There was a lawnmower mowing the lawn, and Prabhupada was upset. And the devotees thought he was upset because it was loud. And he said, no. Prabhupada said, they said, Prabhupada, are you upset because it's noisy? No, he said, I'm upset because I can hear the grass. I can feel the grass crying. So how many people do you know who can feel the grass crying? And while we're giving this class, the grass was being cut outside my house. And if I tell my wife the grass, we can't cut the grass because it's crying, then, we'll have, it'll grow tall and all the snakes will come and, So, who's worried about an insect being hungry and who's worried about the grass crying when you cut it? That's like, that's who has consciousness like that?
Maharaj, I would have asked Srila Prabhupada, wouldn't cutting the grass be synonymous to trimming our hair? It makes us appear nicer, actually.
No, I think there's another story where there was like some tall grass, they were gonna like, maybe it was in a garden or something, not a lawn or something. And they couldn't, and Prabhupada came to something like he came to the temple and they didn't have time to cut it. And Prabhupada said, no, just leave it because there's so many living entities now living in that grass. Don't disturb them. So he just, this is how he saw things. He's worried about other living entities. Is that amazing? Like, how many people on the planet are worried about insects? Go on the street with your microphone. Excuse me, sir, you're worried about the insects. And they're like, what are you talking about? Well, insects, some of them might be hungry, or the lawnmower is cutting the lawn and disrupting their home. Are you worried about that? The insects are in your house. They're dying. There's nothing to eat. Are you worried about that? Hare Krishna. That's what it means to be a devotee. They're worried about insects. I'm going to do a video. We'll call it, are you worried about the insects, the hungry insects in your house? Hare Krishna.
So do we allow the termites to invade our wedding house?
Well, one time when they wanted to use pesticides, Prabhupada said, no, they have a right to eat. They have a right to eat. Of course, it's not your house.
Yeah, okay.
So then one time we had to exterminate cockroaches. And you know what Prabhupada said? He said, you should be exterminated for leaving your temple. He was so upset. You should be exterminated for leaving your temple dirty so the cockroaches come. He just didn't like doing those things. Termites, that's a practical thing. You have to. Termites, I would think they would come under the scope of attacks with a weapon. They're attacking you with a weapon of their, So then in that case, you can defend yourself. But, cockroaches aren't attacking. They're just eating leftovers. But I've been in many temples that were overridden by cockroaches. And then I heard this talk about cockroaches with Prabhupada, and he was upset. I think he acknowledged that they were being overrun, but he was upset that they had to exterminate. So at least today we learned about insects. That's important. How to take care. You can title this talk, How to Take Care of Insects. And of course, you have the story of Murgari, who didn't step on ants. So,
Maharaj, I have one humble request. Is it possible that you come on our platform someday to help discuss the Chaturviha expansion of the Lord? It's a topic that I find it so difficult to understand. If you would be kind enough to help us, especially myself, about the Chaturviha.
Once I understand it, I'll call you back and give the class.
Well, you already understand.
They asked Prabhupada, he said, how did you understand the comment on the fifth canto? And he said, I didn't understand it. He said, I prayed to Krishna, and Krishna, gave me the understanding. He said, but when I started to translate, I didn't understand it. So, if you want, I can. A lot of that's there in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Krishna's a complicated person, so it's like
very.
He's got all kinds of,
Yeah, because we were studying the Adi Lila chapter 5, Nityananda Balaram, and Srila Prabhupada explains the Chaturvyuha, where he seriously, strongly fights against Shankaracharya's explanation today.
Yeah.
But it's still, Srila Prabhupada always tries to explain things in such a way that, even idiots like me can understand. But this topic is still so difficult for me to understand. That's why I'm requesting.
Well, yeah, we can't understand it materially.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem, when you're trying to understand something you've never seen before.
Yeah.
How about understanding this one? We're all eternal and Krishna created us. Well, how do you get created if you're eternal? Go figure that one out. I'll give you a day of Brahma to figure that. You're still probably not going to make sense. Yeah.
I agree to it.
So some things, we're trying to understand, but they're outside of these three dimensions. So it's like,
Okay.
Radharani said, we're separated. And he says, no, we're not separated. We're one. There's no difference between you and me. We're the same. It's a whole different dimension of understanding. Expansions. How do they expand? Where they just come out of the expansions of his body? They just come out. There's another body. So yeah, you can explain it, but you have to have a very, fluid mind to not crunch in on it and say, no, it can't happen like that. We have to accept that we're pretty small and our experience is pretty minuscule. So when we hear these descriptions, we think, oh, this is impossible, or this is mythology. No, it's neither impossible nor mythology. It just means we're small. We haven't been to many places. How many planets have you been to lately? So we just have experience down here. Is just things happen a certain way. And then you hear Bhagavatam and, it doesn't happen that way. No, this can't be true. I don't understand. So part of it is just being kind of open to any possibility and not trying to put it in a box. What's the physics behind this? How does that work?
I have a question, Maharaj.
Yes.
I just clicked the link you shared for the retreat, and I saw the donation area: India, UK, Europe, North America, Middle East, Australia. There is no Africa. Are we coming free?
Africa. Because you guys are,
you are very merciful.
no, I have a better idea. Because you're so merciful on me, you can pay double. How about that? You're so merciful to me, you pay double. If you tell me what you think is a fair price, then I just tell the person who's running it to say in Africa they should pay this much, and then you can pay that much. He goes, the person who's organizing, he just talks to people in different countries and says, like, we'll charge, £9 or €9 or €8 or something like that. Or, no, €9, £7, $11. And then, he talks to different people in different countries and we come up with a price.
Maybe Krishna, as Paramatma, told him that Africans don't have the Lakshmi, so he forgot Africa.
You have oil over there? What do you have over there? You have ivory, a lot of elephants, a lot of ivory. Gold. What about gold? South Africa, Southwest Africa.
I have shared a link in our platform for the watchers to register.
So maybe I'll find out. Well, why don't Girdhari Puja? Why don't you talk amongst yourselves and just figure out what's like your equivalent to like $10 US, Because in America, the minimum wage is like $8. So this is like, 10-20% above the minimum wage. So maybe you could figure it on that basis. An hour's worth of work. What do you get paid? And then something like that. So it's affordable. That's the idea.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay.
We have a question from Girdhari Puja. Unmute yourself, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisance.
Hare Krishna. Jai.
The equivalent to $10 is 4,200 naira.
And what's your minimum wage that you make every hour, like the average worker?
Depends on the person qualification. Let's say like 5,000 naira.
All right. So then mine is 4,000. What do you call it? Mara?
Yeah, naira.
Myra. Is that like affordable for everybody?
That is in Nigeria.
Nine. Like 9 naira.
Naira. Is 4,000 naira affordable for everyone?
Not so much.
Or is it too much?
Yes, it is.
So what's affordable? You tell me what's affordable, and then I'll tell the leader. And then you
Maharaj, since you make Europe and UK £9, €5, €9, you can make Africa €5.
€5 in South Africa?
Africa. I didn't say South Africa. I said Africa.
€5. That's okay?
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Are you saying it says it there, or we should make it there?
You can make Africa €5.
No,
Okay.
he's suggesting.
Oh, okay. Let me write that down. And I'll tell my man, make it €5. Okay. That's good.
Somebody's asking, can someone that is not a devotee attend this Japa retreat?
If they're chanting japa. If they start chanting japa now. That's for people who are already chanting. So if you start chanting now, then you can attend.
Vladimir, have you heard?
Anything else?
I think Krishna Prabhu, you
Not more, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Later on, arrange with Maharaj.
Maharaj, thank you for coming to
chat
our
review.
platform today. We ask all devotees to kindly unmute yourselves and let's chant powerful Hare Krishna for Maharaj for coming.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
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 Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Hare,
Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
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 Hare Rama,
Rama, Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Hare.
Hare
Hare
Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Mahatma
Hare.
Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Oh.
Yay.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,